I'm back with Yeonmi Park, refugee escapee from North Korea, human rights activist, author of a remarkable book, In Order to Live, a North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom. Yeonmi, as we're following your story, you are now, in a sense, in the orbit of freedom. You're in America. You enroll at Columbia University. You have an incredible story to tell. I'm sure there was a great deal that you felt that you had to learn. Talk a little bit about what it is that, what are the kinds of books that you came to like and appreciate, because I then want to talk about woke culture and the clash between woke culture and the books that you love to read.
I loved your book. Actually, read it last year. And then the biggest influence on me was actually reading George Orwell. Until then, the hardest thing for me after escaping from North Korea was people told me everything that I believed in North Korea was a lie. And then I was like, so how do I know what you're telling me is not a lie? Right? I completely had this chaos where I don't know how to trust again. Everything that people told me that, Kims are not gods. They don't know how to read my minds. They are human beings. They don't do miracles. And I couldn't believe it. Then while I was reading George Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984, that's when it completely made sense to me. And that's when I also learned the importance of the price of silence. Until I read that book, I was like, resenting the Kims, the dictators, like how could you have done to this, my family and my people and to me? And then I was realizing, the first generation of these animals, like my grandparents knew, they lived their life before Kims. But when this was happening because of the out of fear, and they were afraid to die for freedom, they kept silent. So when it came to me, that I did not even know that I was oppressed. If you know you're oppressed, you're not oppressed. That's why it was bizarre to me when I came to America. People keep saying how they're oppressed. I'm like, you really don't even know the definition of oppression at this point.
Yeah. You, at one point you describe an incident in which you were talking about why you loved Jane Austen. And I'm assuming that part of the reason for that is that this sort of wonderfully civilized conversation among people in which you get to fall in love, but it's both a rational and an emotional act. And Jane Austen explores that spiritual continent so beautifully. So here you are absorbed in reading Jane Austen, and you're approached by a Columbia administrator, and this could be like the voice of the college. What did this person say to you?
So why I love Jane Austen is also other reasons is that of course that, and also in North Korea history is forgotten. So for me to read a book about love and relationship, that was like in a different century. I did not know that humanity existed before Kim's. They told me that humanity began with Kim Il-sung. So that was fascinating for me that people had like knew what love was before even this time. So reading that was really interesting for me. And then I went to Columbia at the orientation. This person told me, by reading Jane Austen, that's how you get brainwashed, because she lived through the white, supremacy and colloquialism. Therefore, that her writing embodied it in the white supremacy and bigotry. And this is how we look for hidden oppression, hidden bigotry. And, we gotta be sensitive for this kind of materials that, brainwashing us. And it was exactly the same thing in North Korea. They said that our enemies are under the tree, under the tunnel, behind the, leaves, and we have to look for the enemy infiltration. And being at Columbia, they make you exact same way being paranoid.
I mean, do you feel, you hear these people, these students who have very luxurious lives, they have nice apartments, they go home on vacation, they never miss a meal, and here they're talking about microaggressions and safe spaces and, ooh, you made me feel uncomfortable. I mean, what does somebody like you who have lived the life you have, what do you think when you look at these spoiled brats? I mean, you feel like grabbing them and shaking them and saying, listen, let me tell you my story. What's your emotional reaction to this kind of madness around you?
It's just so sad to see the degradation of civilization here right now. If sometimes I feel like maybe this is the end of civilization. Like I mean, like you said, that while I was writing my book, my editors were telling me that, Yeonmi, you're traumatized. You need to go see a therapist. And I was like, what is therapist? And they were like, oh, here in New York, like people get depressed, have problem, they go talk to somebody. And I was like, if you know you like what trauma is, you are really fine. You're in a good place, right? And I think that they do not really have any perspective what real life looks like. They're in this little bubble where they're talking about animals' rights and they become a vegan. And 25 million in North Korea don't even know what human rights is. They are thinking, I mean, being a vegan is the most honorable thing that you can do with your life. So it just so saddens to see that what this prosperity, I mean, this liberty and capitalism brought to them, and they become so entitled. And they are harming themselves being miserable, right? They are creating their own misery. And that's when I learned that not having a problem is actually a problem, right? Now they're all day spending their time to look, creating problems and looking for problems.
I mean, you're making me understand the statement that you have here with your book. It says, I'm most grateful for two things: that I was born in North Korea and that I escaped from North Korea. Are you saying that the fact that you lived under what you did helped you to understand true oppression? And in a strange way, you have to have some experience of oppression to understand freedom.
Yes, and also just be grateful for life. I mean, this afternoon, I'm not gonna worry about am I gonna be able to make it today? Because in North Korea, every day is a struggle. Will I live today? Am I gonna find food tonight? And in America, my concern is what I'm gonna eat in for dinner, right? And the fact that now having electricity, this is a miracle. If you never see this consistency of electricity. So the fact that I went through oppression, I know what the meaning of freedom, but also I can be just grateful for what I have. And people here lost their gratitude. And without gratitude, you can never be happy. And that's why they are so depressed and drug overdose and seeing these people on the street injecting themselves with drugs. And in North Korea, being a homeless is illegal. They punish you. And in North Korea, there is a death sentence for committing suicide. That's how crazy the dictatorship is. And people telling me, oh, America is horrible. But the thing is, in freedom without discipline, freedom without responsibility, then that's what you do. You inject yourself with drugs. So I think people really forgetting the meaning of freedom, what it means to be free. They don't talk about the responsibility that comes with it. So it's just seeing American generation so lost with everything that you do, and then so spoiled. And that's why I'm grateful that I was actually born in North Korea, not in America.
Yeonmi, you have an amazing story, and I hope you'll continue to speak out. You have a lot to say, not just to captives in North Korea, but to people right here in America. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.